I have a confession. And
Okay.
it's really gross.
Oh.
But I'm noticing that it happens every time. So I feel like I'm onto something. Whenever we hit record, whether it's here, whether it's for the videos, for my business, I always burp. It's like nervous burping. And I hope I'm not the only one. So that's my confession. And if you also are a nervous burper, please help me not feel so alone.
Oh, that's amazing. And as I just told her, at least it's not farting. So
At least it's not farting. But if it was, I probably wouldn't tell you, but it's not.
Amazing. Amazing. All right, everybody, let's get started. Hi, I'm Cybil Solon. I'm an esthetician and spa owner.
And hi, I'm Alex Ellis, and I'm a body nerd and wellness expert, and we are business besties.
And bosses. Running your own business, it's hard.
But we're terrible employees, so we're figuring it out.
I've already figured it out, but we promise to share everything we know about what it's like to make six figures and beyond.
And be brutally honest about what works and what totally sucks.
I'll be honest, a bunch of it totally sucks, but let's get started.
That is true. Welcome back to Skinfessional. It is another episode, and yes, there's still construction going on in my house. So on today's show, we are talking about fans and how many fans, followers, and clients you actually need to be successful in your business.
And figuring out if you should be talking to fans or talking to your clients.
Dun, dun, dun.
What?
They're not the same thing.
Oh my gosh, they're different. This is what we literally just figured out.
So we were, trying, what is a fan? Let's just start there. What is a fan?
And so start, like, what is a fan versus what is a client?
So to me, a fan is somebody who they love everything you do, right? They follow you on social media. They're commenting on all of the things. They respond back to all of your emails. They always raise their hand all of the time for all of the things. Like, yes, pick me.
I want the thing. I want to buy it. I love you. Mwah, 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 mwah.
First to sign up for all the stuff versus a client who is someone who's actually taken that fan relationship next level and given you some money for it. Whether
they're the person who's like, or actually when they say, I want to buy it, clicked the button.
Yes.
And actually bought it. So yes. I'm going to be very, very clear with this. There are the people who are like, I want to buy the thing. Bring it to me. I want that. And then there are the people who are like, click, I bought it. They might not even say they want to buy it.
Right.
They
I know.
just bought it.
Yes. That's also a really good point that sometimes the people who become clients aren't necessarily the fans. Although I would argue if they are, speaking from like a digital marketing perspective, if they're on your email list, they're already your fan.
Right.
They've already opted in, but
they're sometimes quieter.
Yeah. Well, you have the lurkers. There's always the lurkers.
Right.
But that relationship to client is different, right? And like whether it's $1, whether it's $1,000, when they have said, hey, not only do I believe what you're doing, but I'm willing to put some money down on the line. Now it's a completely different relationship.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this was literally a revelation for me way too late in business. And, I always tell people, hey, I know what I'm doing. I got this shit covered. I remember Alex and I were having a conversation, and it was early in our friendship where we had a conversation where one day I was like, oh my God, I did not know the difference between a client and a fan, and I am marketing online to the wrong effing people. I am speaking to the wrong people. I am a freaking idiot. And that's literally when I understood that I was not a millennial and I needed help online.
Well, and I think, we've talked about niching and who you're talking to and being clear about who that person is, who is your fan. But also, I think it goes both ways in that, you're talking to the people who are your fans, but you're also using language that's going to call in the type of person that you want to be a fan. So there still is this space for shifting to happen. When I first started, I just was like, let me just put my information out on the internet. And then when I started selling stuff, I realized that I was attracting a lot of teachers who were coming to me for more content ideas for their classes, which is fine. But who I wanted to make the most impact with wasn't teachers. It was regular people who just wanted to move better and feel better. And so I had to start changing my language to attract the right people. Now, I still have teacher fans in my
Mm-hmm.
sphere who are still, engaging, and actually who still are clients as well. But overwhelmingly, I've shifted that needle to be more, say, normal people rather than like professionals in the space.
Right.
So just
Right.
because you have a certain type of fan doesn't mean that you're like indebted and married to them forever.
Yeah, and that is so important to understand. And this happens, I think this happens with clients and with fans
Hmm.
because what will happen is let's say you're doing this for as long as, Alex, you've been doing this for a long time too, but I've been doing this for over a decade. And at some point, you are going to make changes to your business.
Hmm.
You're going to evolve and grow. And you are going to sit around and be like, maybe I want to do something different. I want to change. My philosophy on something might have changed or grown. And you're going to bring on a new device. You're going to bring on a new philosophy, a new training. Something's going to happen. And you might start shifting your menu, what you do, the terminology you use. And because of that, you might lose people.
Hmm.
Right? Your ideas might change. As a person, you might change. You might be like, you know what? I'm going to start talking more about Black Lives Matter. Let's just bring that up. Like, so you might start doing that because you were listening to Skinfessional and you're like, you know what? I do want to start talking about that places. This is important that I start talking about something that I feel.
Hmm.
And suddenly you're like, oh my God, my followers, I'm dropping them. I don't know. Alex and I talked about this. We started losing peeps when we
Like,
started.
bye. Also,
Yeah,
when I started posting like things about Vice President elect Harris, I
right.
saw like 20 people leave. I was like, bye.
I post about healthy at every size, and some people have a lot of trouble believing that like I don't believe in dieting. And they're
Mm,
like, but you should care. And I'm like, well, I care about that you are nutritious and you care about what you eat. As
mhm,
in like, does it feed you as a person? But
mhm,
like that you shouldn't care about your size doesn't matter to me.
mhm. So
Right.
interesting you say that too, because I have a interview with a client that I want to publish, and the way I asked the question of like, where do you see yourself in like, or what are your
Yeah.
goals for like the next year? And it was like weight loss, and I was just like,
Mm.
I mean, that's cool
Yeah.
and that's fine. That's totally fine, but that's not um what I've learned from you too is like the type of fan and client that I want to work with is someone who, even if you started there, you've reached a place where you're like, I'm here to celebrate all of the cool things that my body can do. And I'm
Right.
okay with where I'm at. And I still want more, but I don't have to like dramatically change who I am to get there.
Right. I love myself and I'm just working on myself because I want to improve me and it's not
Mhm,
about my size, my looks, my whatever. And that's so hard in all of the industries we're in. But
mhm,
we've done episodes on that.
mhm.
But understand that you might have any of this stuff happening. And as you have those things happen and you kind of shift, you might shift and your clients might not, your fans might not.
Yeah.
Right. And because of that, you might have to say goodbye.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
fine. There's like how many millions and billions of people in this world? What's one person, two people, whatever, you know? Um, because they are going to leave.
Right.
So, what about how many fans you actually need? Because I think there's kind of like this race to the top of being like an influencer. And even when I hear, gosh, it was like kids are like, well, I just want to be a YouTube influencer like when I grow up. And I'm like, that's not a job. Uh, but like it can be tempting, right? When you see these other accounts that have so many more followers and you're like, okay, well, obviously I need to get there to be like a real business or to be successful. And I think what I want you to take away is that you don't need 15,000 followers. If you have even like 500, even 100 people who will buy anything and everything you put out there, that is freaking
Mm.
fantastic. Like keep rolling with that. And I think we really need to shift to focus of speaking to the clients and the clients to be rather than worrying about these fringe people who might like every post you put up on social media but are never going to give you any money.
Right. That's absolutely true. And especially when you're crafting the sales, the words you're using, the emails. We just did a big webinar about creating your email list and your emails.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that it took me a while to learn was that when I am creating my emails, when I'm creating my marketing, definitely want to pick the words you're saying and the promotions you're doing, and even just the like, hey, how you doing, guys? Hi. Based on that client,
Mm-hmm.
that person that is actually pushing that buy button, that is your kind of like your super fan that is going to move into that client realm,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the person you need to talk to. Everybody else, those are the people who they might matter, but they don't matter as much. So you kind of have to let them kind of shift to the sides.
Yeah. I think even within like your fan base too, there will always be those fans who are never going to give you money, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be there.
Right. And they might hype you up, and that's great.
Yeah.
But
Right. And I'm trying to think the subtle shift I made in my marketing that made a big difference. I talked about before of like talking to like the actual benefit and all of that. But even like within the niche of my niche of my niche of like who I'm speaking to, when it comes to fitness, there are people who are not active and would like to be active.
mm-hmm.
And then there are people who are already active and kind of pushing through the pain and like are longing for what used to be.
Right.
And I was speaking a lot to the people who were like wanting to get started, like it was aspirational, but they hadn't actually done it. And those people, like, no shade to anybody, but what I was seeing was I could have literally the perfect offer at the perfect price in front of them, but there wasn't anything in it for them as far as like they weren't missing out on anything. Right? Like
Right.
being able to stay where they were was okay because that's what they know and that's what feels safe. And so I was having to overcome multiple like hurdles to get to the sale. And when I shifted to be like, oh, no, 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 who I want to work with is the person who is already active, right? But is wanting to get back to where they were and wanting to just not have this extra added
Mm,
baggage of pain, like that's when things really, really took off. So those people who want to get
mm,
started are still in my fan list, but my clients are actually the people who have a longing for where they used to be. And so
yeah.
sometimes like these distinctions and like little tweaks of like turning the dial here and there, it's just about being willing to like go back to the drawing board and be like, okay, so what can I improve 1% each time, you know?
Right. Right. And it is getting clearer and clearer on like you're niching and finding the words and finding that person and discovering those fans that become super fans that
Mm-hmm.
become that client.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to kind of speak to the fact that sometimes it's hard to let go of those
Mm-hmm.
old things. Speaking of the like, we have this longing for the olden times. You have those people who are like,
Whatever do you mean?
right? Um, Especially when we're talking about, I know, especially with us, like me, Alex, we've talked about the fact that like you don't always know all of your clients personally, right? Most of us know many of our clients personally. And so when we're talking about like letting them go, you're like, oh, but I know them. I know this person. I know their family. I have a history with them. It can be hard letting them go,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to sometimes. You're just like, we've grown apart. There's someone else for you. And Asta, somebody else will take care of you.
Yeah.
And somebody will.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of people. But holding on to a client who is not going to be your super fan, who is not going to be that super client, who's not the perfect person, who is not spending the right amount of money, or who's not making you feel good when you see them, it's not okay. Right? Because you're not going to give them your best work.
Yeah. I actually I had somebody like that in my community. And so the offer that I have and the way it's set up is designed to grow, right? I can show up and deliver the same amount whether there are, 47 people in my group or 470 people in my group. And that was done intentionally. And I had somebody come in and right off the bat, like every day I was getting asked questions about all kinds of things, like literally even, oh, well, so I have a friend who has this thing, like, is this going to help? And
Oh, yeah, I remember
you
this
will,
person.
do you remember this?
Yes, I remember this person.
I was like messaging you, like, oh my gosh, like, what do I say?
Right.
So even though, and this was because I offered a free trial into my membership. And anytime you offer people access to you or your material without that initial exchange, it brings on a certain type of client who is just not ready to put money down on the line. And for some of these people in that week that I had this going, like I met some really cool people who I can absolutely see becoming clients down the line. And then this one person, it was so glaringly obvious that they were not my client. And I literally could not wait for their 7-day trial to end because I already knew. I was like, they're not staying on. And if they do stay on, like I'm ready to be like, you know what? I really don't think this is a good fit for you. And so I think like intuitively we already know, right, when it comes to clients, like what type of person this is. And so it's really important not to get into like that desperation type of energy of just like, I'll take anybody's money. I've totally been there.
Right.
But then you get stuck in situations where you're like resenting the type of person you're working with. You're, pissed off and angry and miserable all the time. And I just think that there are billions of people in the world
Right.
suffering through that one person for what, $200. Like it's not
Right.
really worth it.
And it can be hard. I know that like we get in a very numbers game when it comes to like we look at our fans and our numbers and our email list and we look at the numbers of the people who are on them. So let's talk about on email lists, right? You pay for every single person on that list, right? So you're paying to have that subscriber. So if that person is not making you money, you don't want them anyways. Right.
No. Well, especially if you're not opening anything.
Yeah, they're not opening anything and they don't actually convert. It's called converting, right? When they actually convert to a client. So if that person on that list converts to a client, you're like, yay, this is a person worth my money. If not, you don't want them anyways. They're just hanging out as like, what we call barnacle. They're just hanging out on your ship being useless. So you want them gone. You want them bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. Okay. If they're sitting on your like Instagram and stuff, that actually brings down the algorithm as well because they're not engaging. So you can have 10,000 followers, but if they're not engaging with you, Instagram looks at that and goes, bunch of effing bots.
Yes, actually, and you can tell this is something I do to boost my confidence. Is that I will go look at accounts and I'm like, oh, you have 14,000 followers, and then you go and look at a post and it has 40 likes, and I'm like, that means that like 40 people saw this post and the rest of them didn't actually see it because you have so many of those either bots or just people who don't even care.
Right.
So
right.
an account where you have less followers but more, like a higher percentage of your people actually see what you're posting is so much better and more valuable to you than tens of thousands who never see anything.
Right. And I know it's hard. I have this problem sometimes too. We look at those numbers and we're like, but Instagram doesn't let me do things until I hit that 10,000 number, which by the way is BS, right? And we don't get that swipe up feature.
Well, you
and
can't pay for it. Just do an
right.
ad.
You can pay for it, but it's kind of BS, right? It's this random number that seems like so lame.
It is. I agree. But you know what? Speaking of swipe up, there's loopholes, right? If you do an IGTV, you can swipe up to that. But also, actually, you lead me to my next thing. Not having that swipe up feature encourages and requires you to have more of
engagement,
those conversations.
Yeah.
Right. Because I can't say swipe up and then you just like stumble off and maybe you see it, maybe you don't. I have to say, hey, message me. Or when people answer a poll, I will literally go back and message them and just say, send a video message, send a personal message like, hey, so excited. Here you go. So it offers an opportunity to connect with people in a way that you couldn't do if you had.
That's 100% true. That's 100% true. And then I know for myself, like I have reached out to companies where I'm like, hi, I'd love to like represent your company. I love this product. And they're like, oh, but you don't have very many followers. I'm like, dude, I love your product. I want to hawk it. I have people who engage with me. And like, you're turning me down. I'm like a micro influencer. And they're just like, I
Mhm.
don't get that one.
Yeah, well, they're just
Well,
dumb.
and you're like, well, then you're stupid. Go away.
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I understand that there's this number game that's out there. I get it. It's horrible. It's fake, right? It's fake. You just have to have confidence in yourself and know that once again, there's this idea of like you have a certain number of fans. Are those fans out there turning into clients and making you money and loving on you and you're loving on them back?
Mhm.
Right? Because that's what really matters, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and even like a shift in this understanding came for me when we had our conversation with Jenna. And she was
Right.
talking about going and liking and commenting and engaging with people who already like you, right? Or like you on social media. Whereas before, I had been going out and finding strangers who
Right.
shared similar interests. Like, I'm literally like a stranger to them. So why do we get so concerned with people who like don't care when there are people who are like, hey, what do you have to say? I'm here for that. So nurture those relationships, like create stuff for those people, hang out online with those people because they're the ones who are into what you're doing.
Right. So once again, you're starting to narrow that focus down to like the people who care and matter, and you're finding those peeps, right? They're your group. Now, if you think about your fans as the people you want to convert into your clients, this all makes sense. You're like, oh, well, I like clients. Clients make me money. I care about my clients. And you're like, so what if I cared about my fans? I'm not going out to some rando people because I
Mhm.
don't care about those people at all. I don't know those
Right.
people. But we see it like social as like this like unusual strange place that we just go out and we follow the algorithms and the rules that we're given.
Mhm, mhm. But I think, this also shows up for me too in asking opinions of people who are like fans and making
Mhm.
business decisions on what your fans are saying, but they're not the ones buying stuff.
Right.
Right. So, I do use social media as like market research, but again, taking it with a grain of salt because the people answering aren't always the people who are actually going to give me money. Right. Versus, if I had followed what we said on our email workshop and set up a client list, I could be, just talking to clients, and asking them, what do you want to see? What would you buy? What are you into? And surveying them. So be careful you don't get into the trap of like, let me ask these people who have never paid me any money and I know are never going to pay me any money what their opinion is, because their opinion in your business, like it doesn't matter.
Right. Yes. The opinions of people that don't matter.
They're the ones that are so quick to give it to you no matter what.
They are. They're so quick. So a lot of this conversation started because Alex had somebody comment to her about her. She has another podcast that she does. She's been doing it for how long have you been doing your other podcast now?
That other podcast is like 18 months old. I'm
Yeah.
actually, I'll hit the 90th episode on Thanksgiving.
That's amazing, right? And go ahead and pump it right now. Which
Oh, the
one is
Body
it?
Nerd Show.
The
If you
Body
want to get
Nerd
nerdy
Show,
about
right?
movement, come hang out.
That's right, guys. It's amazing, right? She just did one on she did one on pelvic floor. You just did one on
Muscle memory.
muscle memory, which is not a thing.
No, it's not.
Not
I
a thing.
bust a lot of myths. But so this listener rolled up into my free Facebook group, which is that's what it's there for, and asked a very in-depth question, and then asked another really in-depth question on my Instagram. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, ask questions. That's what I'm here for. Also, as a side note, as far as content, take those questions, turn them into a post, teach the whole room rather
Yes.
than getting sucked into that one conversation. And then I got an email from him that was like, you mentioned this topic and it wasn't clear. You didn't explain it well. And
Right.
I'm just like, okay, thanks, I guess. So I think that like as business owners, right, we want to be like so polite and we want to be so kind. But as you're transitioning into the online space, right, like he hasn't crossed that line yet. I wouldn't unsubscribe him for himself. But I have done that for other people where I'm like, hi, you're just a jerk and I don't want you here. And I'm just going to help you and unsubscribe you
Right.
without
Unsubscribe and block. Bye-bye.
bye. Yeah. And so like there's a person who like Awesome. I'm so stoked that you're listening. You help me chart in your country all the time because I see it and I'm like, wow, that's cool. But I'm not beholden to you, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
your opinion because I know that you're never going to buy anything that I offer.
That's right. That's right.
No.
So, and that is something to remember, guys. Is this person going to buy? So, whenever you're sitting there and you're freaking out and you're like, you're spitting out about something, come back to is this my client? Is this person like a person who is actually going to buy from me ever? And then just like chillax. Be like,
Right.
bring that back
Actually
down.
care.
Just bring that back down. This person is not relevant. It's just,
Mm-mm.
they're not. Now, I say that with, I always take it for a grain of salt because, like, are they teaching me anything? Because, like Alex just said, can I take that? Can I use this for something?
Mm-hmm.
You know, am I learning something from this? Because I do truly believe that most things in life are, you can be learned from, but there's no need to spin out and freak out about it. Because I see so many people that, you know, we take things so very personally sometimes. Like, we have
For
so
me,
very personally.
no.
I was just talking to an esthetician who essentially told me, she's like, she just did this big gratitude sale and she does it every year.
Mm-hmm.
And she takes such good care for clients. You know, she's a good esthetician. And the client essentially was like, I purchased my product. I bought it a week ago. I didn't know you were having a gratitude sale. She does the same sale, guys, every freaking year for Thanksgiving, right? Even I know that. And she's like, I wanted to get a discount on this, even though she bought it a week ago. Now, mind you, if she was out of the product, she needed to buy it.
Right.
Right. So she needed to buy it. She couldn't be out of her product for a week. That's just how it is. She's like,
I
but
mean,
I
you
want you
could
to
cut
give
the
me
bottle open and be like,
right.
excuse
She's like,
me.
she's gonna use a week of product, dude. Okay. She's like, but I want the discount. And of course, the esthetician was like, girlfriend, no, I can't do that. You know, there's no retroactive. But what you can do is you can stock up now for the sale.
That's smart.
Right.
Well, it's too, I think people forget that there's like real humans on the other side of these emails and computers, and they're such jerks about it so often. I just bought a planner like a month ago. It's literally 50% off right now, but I know
Right.
that this is a small business, that times are hard, and that I would happily pay full price or 50%. I'm not going to go off and nickel and dime some other small business.
No, you're not
You
gonna
know,
be
we're
like, I'm gonna
Apple,
I'll save $10, but like you'll not have $10. So
right. Like go and nickel and dime the big corporations, but don't be a jerk and be nickel and diming some small business.
which I mean, and the end of the day, you know, even Amazon, it all goes down apparently to the small guy because, you know, their health insurance is being asked to be paid by your friend when they have COVID. So so I mean, it all comes around, as we know. It all comes around. But you can't take it personally. So when this esthetician, when, you know, she was asked these questions and she handled it the best way she could, what came to her out of all of this was, she was like, you know what? I realized that I don't actually like this client, because a client of mine who was like a good client of mine would never do this to me. Not ever. Not ever.
Exactly.
Not
Exactly.
ever in a million years. Because then the second thing this client wound up doing is she wound up purchasing more product and then not using the code that she was supposed to use to get the discount, and then come back to her and be like, I didn't use the code.
No.
Can you fix this for me?
I
And
think
she's like,
it's
nobody
like
should cause me this much drama.
it's not a barnacle client because barnacles are like doing nothing. These are like succubus clients
Yes,
who
they're
show up
vampires.
just to suck your energy away. And that if one person is taking like 10 people's worth of energy, like you don't need them. Their money is like not even worth it.
Right? So we've talked about this before. Clients who maybe are not for you, let them go. Let
Bye.
them go. And that's essentially the conversation we wound up having, where I'm like, girlfriend, it's time to let this client go. Are they spending enough money? And even if they are, maybe they're not. Bye-bye. Just
Yeah.
the drama of it all. And Alex and I have had conversations where, like, sometimes even if they're like giving you all the money, it's not worth it, honey. It's just
Okay,
not.
so we were talking about this before, and I know we're going to get into about like emotional attachment to our clients. And
Yeah.
I want to just be very upfront and honest that I'm talking all this big talk right now. But you guys, so I had private clients that I would go to their house. And this was already after I had started my membership and was charging people like $300 an hour to do like one-offs on the internet. But there were these two clients.
These are total old ladies.
Yes, I love them. They
Yes.
were great Christmas presents. They literally were paying me $100 to get in my car, drive across town in rush hour traffic to go to their house to teach them the same sequence every single week because they never would do any homework and they would never practice and they would never take any of my advice, and then come home and, like week after week after week. And then they would cancel and then I'd be like, shoot, I didn't get money. They were, see, and I think this actually is the most difficult client. The one who is not a barnacle, not a succubus. They're like innocuous, right? They're like totally harmless, but you know that like it's not serving you. And I'd been really just like in my head, like, well, it's okay because they're so sweet and they give good Christmas gifts, like we just said, and they're so nice and all of this stuff. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. When the pandemic started and I lost that client and I lost my gym job, which I would drive 45 minutes to teach for 1 hour and then drive another half hour to 45 minutes home for $45.
But you'd sometimes feed my cats.
And sometimes I feature cats, but I was like, oh, but I get a free gym membership. Like, it's worth it. So many of these, like, I really, really, really want you to just like sit down and be like, is this worth it?
No.
Is this thing that I'm like, no, but I need that money. I need that free gym membership. I love my garage gym. I don't ever want to go back to the gym ever again because I have everything I need here. If it hadn't been for the pandemic to like pull the rug out from underneath me, I probably would still be teaching. That's literally like 4 hours out of my week for $0 essentially.
Yep.
And it was when those clients disappeared and that energy diversion disappeared that things started taking off. So I encourage you to do like an inventory. Who are, and I feel like it feels kind of mean, but I think, when you want to build your business and build your, like the business that is the one you want, not just the one that you have. You really need to look, okay, who are the people? Like, I love them. They're awesome. They're super compliant. They do what I want them to do. Who is like on the other end of that spectrum of like, my gosh, I never want to see them again. And who's kind of in the middle? Because some of those middle people, right? And definitely the energy suckers, like maybe they need to go so you can make space for building out your online membership or building out your website or building out your shop store instead of dealing with them.
Yeah, it's 100% true. It's 100% true. And it's hard. It's hard sometimes. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've had clients and we totally just need to write the, like, what kind of clients do you have book? I've definitely had clients. I mean, I've had clients where they like cancel all the time on me and like they're constantly trying to get in last minute and then they still cancel and they can't afford to come in. So I've never raised their prices. But I like them as people and I just like seeing them and like hanging out with them, and really they should not be my clients, but I just kept keeping them.
I know. It's almost like love it, like it, leave it, right? Organize your clients that way. But before you do that, make a list of like what's important to you. Like, what do you value in this ideal client? For me, compliance and like actually doing your homework is a huge thing. So much so that I built a whole business where it literally is just if you do your homework, right? And if you don't do your homework, I know you're going to quit. I'm not going to take it personally because obviously you weren't my client if you can't even do your homework,
It's true. It's true. Dude, compliance is a big one for us. It's totally true. So, back to like kind of like the feels of your clients. So when you're talking about your clients, and this is your fans too. So if you're ever like looking at your fan numbers and you're like, oh my God, I'm losing numbers. And I know during the election book, we kind of talked about this a little bit. Like we were just like, I lost like 50 people in one day.
I stopped caring, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care in general, but I know that the one day I was just like, damn, I wonder what I said. I wonder what I posted today that was like, I was like, damn, okay.
Some of your stories was too polarizing.
Yeah, I was like, damn, all right, cool. I must have reposted something that really angered people. Okay. But understand that sometimes, like, that's when it gets real. Like, that's the stuff that's actually when you're finding out like who your real fans are.
Mhm.
right? That's when you're like deep into what a fan is that will be convert to a client.
Yeah. And actually this summer after George Floyd was murdered and the uprisings and all of that, and I was seeing too, like people just dropping off, I realized that like,
Mhm.
oh shit, I don't really care about them. And it's not a numbers. I mean, like if you're stuck in the numbers game, then I'm always pleasing people who are like fringe fans and not actually concerned about the true fans, the people who are here, they're down for the cause, they're like fist up, ready to go
Yeah.
with me for anything and everything I offer.
Yeah.
And I could be more fully authentic myself because I was showing up as me. And you either take it or leave it. And that's fine. I'm not taking it personally because I know that I'm being true to myself.
Right. Because at the end of the day, we don't need a giant
No.
following to be impactful, right? You don't need a huge group of people to make a difference. In
Mm-mm.
fact, as one person, solo by yourself, you probably can't make a huge difference to a ton of people,
Mm-mm.
right? As one person. Now, if you decide that you're going to grow and you're going to scale and you're going to get other people to help you, that changes. But when you're by yourself and you're alone and you're sitting in your room or your office or whatever and you're by
All
yourself,
by myself.
right? You can't answer like 900 DMs a day.
No. I
No.
mean, you could, but no. Yeah. There
Mm,
are some people, and actually, I will say, what I love about Instagram are the people who do respond to their DMs.
mm,
And there is I mean, she has a big account, and she has a thriving business, and I look up to her. And her cookie dough recipe is the best cookie dough recipe, hands down. Like, I will fight you on it. But she just responded back to my story after I've been commenting and following her story for literally like 18 months now, and
and who is it?
I was like, oh my God. But know that
Who
there
is
are,
it?
Jazzy Things.
There you go. Jazzy Things, guys. Go
Yeah.
follow Jazzy Things.
She's awesome. I love her. Her dog Cleo. Like I feel like I know her and I've never met her. But know that there are people who are following you right now who will make the exact same reaction as I just did when you send them a message, when you
Mhm.
send them a voice message, when you go like their thing, when you go comment, like they will. And so I think that we are at an advantage to have smaller spheres of influence right now because you can go and have those like unscalable conversations because you have the time. Right before we
Mhm.
hopped on this, I just sent 10 personalized video messages out to people who are interested in my Black Friday offer because I can.
Right.
And there will come a day where there's 1,000 of them, and I'm not going to send 1,000 individual messages. I'm going to send one to all of them. But while I have a small, following, I have a smaller list of people raising their hand. You bet your bottom dollar I'm going to make those personal touches where I can.
Mhm. And that's what it's about. And the personal touches do matter. They really, really do. I know I follow a couple people who have fairly large accounts, and they still make sure that they send out to they've said straight up they're like we send out to 10 people a day, even though we have like 10,000 followers. They pick people at random. And they still send out 10 a day just to do it.
That's awesome.
I know, and it's keep in the trenches, man. Keep in the trenches.
Mm-hmm. I
You know.
remember, and actually, that idea of like, there's people freaking out over you too. I got from Jasmine Starr, who's another super awesome social media coach with a massive following, who does respond to her DMs, usually like 4 or 5 days later, because I'm sure she just has like so many. But she was on stage, and I said that to her. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I DM'd you, and like you responded," and she's like, "And people do the same thing about you. Like, never forget that. That whatever you're doing, you are a freaking badass, and people are stoked, and you have fans there. So stop worrying about the barnacles and the like middle ground people who like
Mhm.
suck your energy and aren't. It's like they're not worth it, but
Right.
that's not nice to say about people. But
Yeah.
like I mean it, they're not worth it.
They're not worth your time.
Mm-mm.
They're not worth your time.
Or your
They might be
energy.
worth whatever else they're worth, but they're not worth your time,
Mm-mm.
right? You need to give your energy to and speak to the people who matter and who care,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? The person who, when they do that message, are like, oh my God, this is amazing. Can I keep it forever? This is
I
incredible.
know. Oh
This
my
is
God, he sent me a
incredible.
personal message. Oh my God. Like it makes me feel special.
right? And because I mean, I've gotten those. I mean, I'm now a really good friend online with somebody who I was like that with. Like his name's All Yellow Josh. And I know the first time I was just like, oh my God, he answered and I'm so excited. And I now send him birthday messages and we chat and it's amazing, And I was just like a super fan because if I follow somebody he's a fan of too.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. So I know that there's accounts that, you are super fans about. And so what we want you to take away from this is to focus on the people who are actually spending money with you, shower them with, surprise and delight. Yeah. And like pay attention to the fans, but don't get distracted by your fans.
Right.
Don't get distracted by vanity numbers and worrying about that. When you have people who are like super stoked that you're here and you're helping and that you're showing up with a voice and sharing.
Exactly. And keep things focused on those fans. So when you're making things, keep that top of mind that you're making it for those fans who you're going to convert to clients. And if they're not going to be a client, you know what? You're not speaking to them. No. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine.
Because super fans and fans, you don't have to convince them to buy the thing you have. They're just like, oh my God, take my money. I don't even know what it is, but take my money.
Right. Because a super fan loves everything you do, right? Mm-hmm. A super fan is that fan who's like, I am on board with everything you're into. You're into dogs. I'm into dogs. You started a bakery. I now want your baked goods. I follow you everywhere, whatever you do. I'm about that life. Mm-hmm. I can't wait for you to post more about your smoothie drinking. Right? They don't care. They're just into what you're into. And if they're not into it, they just ignore it. Yeah, and that's fine. So you can post it because if they're not into it, the person who's not a super fan is just like, oh, swipe sideways. Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, the algorithm is probably not even going to show you to them.
Sadly, that's probably true.
They won't know. They're going to forget. They're going to forget you exist.
I know. That's true. It's true. All right, guys. I think we've covered almost everything. I think we did pretty good today. I hope you now know the difference between a client versus a fan, a super fan. I hope you are somebody's super fan. You can go make your list of like who you're a super fan of and be like, oh, that's what I am. Because you know now.
You know the criteria. Yeah. And also like I literally just said, don't worry about the vanity metrics. You don't need 10,000 people on your email list to be profitable. You don't need 15,000 followers on Instagram to have a business. Like you don't. You really don't. There are accounts on Instagram who have tens of thousands of followers and are just trying to figure out how to monetize and make money. And there are people you have never heard of who are making millions of dollars a year. So it doesn't matter. Focus on the metrics, focus on the people, because those are the people that actually matter.
It's totally true. It's totally true. And guys, if you're out there and you're like, oh my God, I am one of those people who's making millions of dollars. Hey, call us.
We want to talk to you. Tell us your secrets. I think the secret is just focusing on people who actually care and being awesome at what you do with people who are stoked about it.
I know. Because we all have the person. Share the person. I'd love to know the people that you follow that you're the super fan of. Because I know that what's great is when you follow other people and you're a super fan of somebody and you love them and then you share them with somebody and then somebody else is like, oh my God, I'm that person's super fan too.
I know, it's so true.
Well, or then you become their super fan as well.
Instagram makes that easy too because it tells you who else is following.
Mm-hmm. You can all stalk them. You're like, oh, you're like, I love them. Oh, you've locked their post too. That's amazing.
We're gonna be friends. You can also reverse engineer that to find people who follow people you find unsavory and unfollow them, which I have done too. Reverse engineer your super fans.
No.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you follow them. Whew, I'm out. What? D9. And sometimes too, I'm like, bummer. That's really a bummer. But
that's a shame.
I've got my values. I've got my morals. I know where I stand in my why and my purpose. And that to me is more important.
Word. All right, guys. It has been so much fun. Alex is going to let us move on out today.
I am. Move on up. Okay, we want to hear who you're a super fan of. So hit us up on social. You can find the show at Skinfessional. You can find Cybil at Your Skin Fitness Expert. And you can find me at Holla for Mala.
Yes.
Also, you can leave us a ring-a-ding in our landing strip box.
Yes, on our landing strip. If you know that, please let us know that you know what we're talking about. on our Skinfessional box at 818-473-5277. So guys, I hope you've had a lot of fun with us. Until next week,
keep your secrets to yourself.
Unless you're telling us.
Okay, bye.